Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. So this has actually been one of the craziest days ever in gaming history, and that's not an exaggeration even in the slightest. No, I am being dead serious about this because Microsoft, Xbox, just acquired Activision Blizzard. This is not a joke, this is a for real thing. And the thing is that a couple weeks ago we were kind of freaking out because Take-Two acquired Zynga for $12 billion, which was the biggest game acquisition at the time. But here with this Activision Blizzard acquisition, it cost them nearly $70 billion. Yeah, let that sink in for a moment. So we're going to go over all of this later in the video, which, I mean, there's a lot to go over here. Now, you can skip straight to that part of the video if you want, but nonetheless, we, of course, do have plenty of other things to talk about as well, including more Xbox Game Pass games for the month of January, some really good ones at that, plus plenty more. In fact, let's just go and get the video started off with some Nintendo news, as Kingdom Hearts now has a release date for the Nintendo Switch. Now, this was revealed last year that the mainline Kingdom Hearts franchise would be heading over to the Nintendo Switch, though there has been some controversy surrounding this because these games are cloud-based games. And I think that there's definitely a big question, especially with Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 and 2.5 remakes. Do those really need to be cloud-based? Because I'm pretty sure that they could probably run on the Nintendo Switch. Nonetheless, though, these games have now officially gotten a release date for February 10th. So you will be able to play these games on your Switch starting next month. And they did also reveal the prices, which it definitely is a little bit on the pricier side of things. Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 plus 2.5 Remix is priced at $40. Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue will be $50. And then Kingdom Hearts 3 plus Remind DLC is also $50. However, if you do want all of these games on your Switch, again, these are cloud-based games, but if you want all of these games, they do have a bundle which will be priced at $90, where you can get all of these games. So these are a little bit pricier than what I probably would have wanted them to, because, I mean, you can actually go back and get some of these games on Xbox or PlayStation for a much, much more affordable price by this point. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of how Square Enix is releasing these games, to be completely honest with you. I think they could have done a lot better with this, but nonetheless, I do like the Kingdom Hearts franchise, and if you are interested in these games, and if you only have the Nintendo Switch, then maybe you might want to check these games out. Again, they will release on February 10th. Now, we do also have some PlayStation news to talk about, as Sony has now renewed the Psygnosis trademark as well as its logo. Now, if you played PlayStation back during the 90s, there's a good chance that you might recognize Psygnosis, as they have worked on a lot of games. Most notably, though, would be the Lemmings franchise as well as Wipeout. These are beloved PlayStation IP that was developed by Psygnosis, though Sony did eventually change their name to Studio Liverpool, which wasn't nearly as cool of a name, but nonetheless, they did operate as Studio Liverpool from 1999 all the way up to 2012, when unfortunately Studio Liverpool was shut down. Really, anytime a studio gets shut down, it's always an unfortunate situation, but Sony has found themselves to be in a bit of a unique predicament because they have here recently acquired Firesprite, which in many ways is the successor studio to Psygnosis and Studio Liverpool. It has many of the former developers that's worked on Psygnosis, and because now that we are seeing this trademark for Psygnosis here, there's some speculation that maybe they could be trying to bring the Psygnosis brand back. Firesprite being a pretty big studio, maybe they could split them up into teams and have one of those teams be called Psygnosis. And I mean, I guess that's possible, though I'm not exactly sure if that's what's happening here. A lot of times when you see trademarks like this, it's just a company doing due diligence because they need to upgrade those trademarks. However, I do think that this would be really cool if that were to happen. I think this would be a nice nod to those long-term developers that's working within Firesprite, and it'd also be a pretty nostalgic thing for long-term PlayStation fans that's been playing these consoles for decades. Okay, so let's just go and move on over to the Xbox news, because this is absolutely massive. I used to get annoyed by this term, a megaton, but I mean, if there's ever a word for this, this would be an absolute megaton. Xbox just acquired Activision Blizzard for a total of $68.7 billion. Like, this isn't even an exaggeration, even in the slightest, but this absolutely changes everything when it comes to the game industry. And there's just so much to go over here. I could probably talk about this for an hour straight, but I'm going to try to keep this as concise as possible, but we're going to kind of get into some different details on what this acquisition means. We're going to talk about the different game IP that Xbox is acquiring here and what that means for them going forth, which actually is probably the best news regarding this. We'll kind of get to that here in a bit. We're going to talk about exclusivity. I know that's going to be a huge question going forth because we don't really technically have a confirmation of what's happening here. And we're also going to talk about what it means for the company itself. What does it mean for Xbox, and what does it mean for Activision Blizzard? And I think that there's some pretty good things regarding that as well. Again, we're just going to kind of dive into all of this, so just kind of bear with me. I will try to get through this as quick and concise as possible. First, though, let's kind of take a look at some of the official statement made by Phil Spencer. Until this transaction closes, which, by the way, they are looking to close this by the end of Microsoft's fiscal year in 2023, so this is going to be a while, but it continues on to say, Activision Blizzard and Microsoft Gaming will continue to operate independently. Once the deal is complete, the Activision Blizzard business will report to me as CEO, Microsoft Gaming. That is important because there's a lot of questions about Bobby Kotick over at Activision. He will remain the CEO for Activision at least until the acquisition is complete, but what it sounds like to me here is that once Microsoft fully acquires Activision Blizzard, Bobby Kotick will be gone. Which, if you've been paying attention to the news at all over the last year or so, I'm sure the game community will be thrilled to see him go bye-bye. But nonetheless, he continues on to say, upon close, we will offer as many Activision Blizzard games as we can with Xbox Game Pass and PC Game Pass, both new titles and games from Activision Blizzard's incredible catalog. We also announced today that Game Pass now has more than 25 million subscribers. As always, we look forward to continuing to add more value and more great games to Game Pass. So right away, it's fairly obvious that there's going to be a lot of questions regarding this acquisition. I mean, you're talking about the biggest acquisition in game history by far. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of questions, especially when it comes to exclusivity, but I think two things right now are pretty obvious. One being Xbox Game Pass subscribers won majorly here as some of the biggest game IP in the entire industry more than likely will be coming to Xbox Game Pass day one going forth. I mean, you're talking about games like Call of Duty coming to Xbox Game Pass day one. That is massive alone. But continuing on, another thing that I think has been fairly obvious so far with this acquisition, Microsoft is looking to change, or actually, I'm going to reword that. They're looking to improve the culture of Activision Blizzard. Again, Activision Blizzard has been under major scrutiny for how they treat their employees, especially female employees. And Microsoft here has a chance to improve that and make it a good culture to work for once again. So that right there is already improvement. Activision Blizzard needed new leadership, and they're going to get that with Microsoft. So I think for Activision Blizzard employees, there's a reason to celebrate this acquisition. So that's a really good and cool thing about this story. Moving beyond that, though, the other fact about this acquisition is that Xbox just improved dramatically in terms of their first-party content. I mean, if you start to look at things, Xbox now owns some of the most beloved and popular IP in the entire game industry. With this acquisition, they will own Call of Duty, which is easily one of the biggest franchises in the entire industry. Every single year, it sits at the top, being one of the best-selling games on a yearly basis. And now Xbox will own the Call of Duty franchise. Now, what they do with Call of Duty from this point forward, that remains to be seen. We'll come back to that here in just a moment. But to just kind of look even further, Xbox will own franchises such as Crash Bandicoot. They will own Spyro the Dragon, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Guitar Hero, Overwatch, StarCraft, World of Warcraft, Diablo, and the list just continues to go on and on. With this acquisition, Xbox has one of the most notable lineups of gaming IP across the entire game industry. So that is one of the big questions. What will Xbox do with these IP? And I actually see a lot of good that comes from this acquisition. acquisition. See, the reason I say that is because we know for a fact that Xbox wants more family-friendly games. They have publicly stated this several different times, and this acquisition very much gives them the IP to do just that. Not only that, but it also gives them the resources. As I just pointed out, with this acquisition, Xbox will own franchises such as Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot. Xbox also owns Banjo-Kazooie, so they have the IP to make family-friendly games. But like I said, they also have the resources. Toys for Bob is a very interesting pickup here. This is the studio that worked on Crash Bandicoot 4, and they did a phenomenal job with that game. But one thing that we've been seeing over the last year is that it almost seemed like Activision Blizzard was kind of moving away from Crash Bandicoot and Spyro. But here with Xbox, they have a different strategy because having various IP is very important for the Xbox brand, most importantly for Xbox Game Pass. Suddenly, a new Crash Bandicoot and Spyro game, or even Banjo-Kazooie, suddenly became much more likely. And that's one of the great things about this acquisition. I don't think that they're going to be as limited as what they were under Activision Blizzard. They're not just going to be shoehorned to work on Call of Duty and only Call of Duty. Now, the talent over at Vicarious Visions is a really interesting pickup here as well, and technically they were absorbed by Blizzard, but Vicarious Visions has done a great job with remakes in the past, such as the Crash Bandicoot trilogy. They also recently worked on Diablo 2, and the reason I am very interested in this right here is because they could also do some remakes for Xbox IP as well. Fans have been asking for a Banjo-Kazooie remake for years and years, so hey, Xbox has Vicarious Visions now, so maybe it's suddenly becoming a little bit more possible. Now, two other things that this does for Xbox is that it improves their PC lineup as well as mobile games. First, let's kind of talk about the PC side of things because Blizzard is included with this acquisition. They are massive over on the PC side of things with games like Diablo, World of Warcraft, Overwatch, StarCraft, and the list goes on and on. This is actually huge for their PC initiative. This is something that Xbox has really been trying to improve over the last 5 or so years. They've been releasing all of their games on PC day one, and this also includes a few timed PC exclusives such as Age of Empires 4, Flight Simulator, and even Gears Tactics. So they've really been trying to improve their PC initiative, and with Blizzard on their side now, that's only going to be accelerated from this point forward. They are now one of the biggest PC publishers, but let me tell you why this could be a good thing for PC gamers. I'm not going to say this is absolutely going to happen, but something that PC gamers does not like is having all of these different PC launchers. And right now, Blizzard has their own launchers for Activision Blizzard games. But with Xbox, something that we have been seeing is that they've been bringing their games over to the Steam platform, which is easily the biggest platform for PC and easily the most popular platform over there. So is it possible that Xbox could try to bring these games over to Steam? And I think that it might actually be a possible situation, so this could end up being good for PC gamers as well. Now, as I said, the other thing that really benefits Xbox here is that this acquisition also includes King, which makes mobile games. This isn't necessarily going to be as interesting for you core gamers out there, but King is still a really big mobile developer, and with all of the different Xbox, Blizzard, and Activision IP, they can make a lot of different games, and that will make a lot of money for Xbox. Xbox, of course, also has the cloud division, which maybe they could help out with stuff like that as well. But yeah, I think King is kind of an important part of this acquisition, even if it's not necessarily as exciting for core gamers. Let's go ahead and move on over to the big question, though, the elephant in the room, and that is whether or not these Activision Blizzard games will be exclusive to Xbox after this acquisition is complete. Now, basically, right now, what is being stated from Bloomberg sources is that some of these games will be exclusive to Xbox going forward, and some will not. And then Phil Spencer also stated this: "I'll just say to players out there who are playing Activision Blizzard games on Sony's platform, it's not our intent to pull communities away from that platform, and we remained committed to that." Though the question is, what does that statement actually mean? Because this is something very similar to what he said when they acquired Bethesda. Back then, they made a statement very similar to this, and as we all kind of know, pretty much all of the new Bethesda games will be exclusive to Xbox. However, games that already have contracts and games that are ongoing, such as The Elder Scrolls Online, those will remain under development with PlayStation in mind. So I can't look at Phil Spencer's statement and say for absolute certainty on what he means here. Though I do know the franchise franchise that everybody's going to be talking about, and that is Call of Duty. Will Call of Duty be exclusive to Xbox or not from this point forward? And I think that there's some reasons that maybe it might not be, because I do look at Call of Duty kind of like Minecraft. I mean, you're talking about a top 5 franchise in terms of popularity, so they could possibly keep this game going multi-platform going forward. But at the same time, if they do make it exclusive, this is going to push their services and consoles at an extremely rapid pace. So that might be far more important for Xbox, which I do suspect could end up being the case. So I think that there is a very real possibility that Call of Duty could end up being exclusive for Xbox when it comes to new games. Now, something like Warzone, that obviously will remain multi-platform, but in terms of new releases, yes, there is a possibility that they could end up being exclusive to Xbox. We're just gonna have to kind of see how that one plays out, but PlayStation might also still have a contract in terms of timed exclusive content, and that could play a role if they still have a contract, but I'm not entirely sure about that situation. All I know, though, is this acquisition is absolutely massive and game-changing for the entire industry. Let me know what you think about all this, though, in the comments below. What do you think about Microsoft acquiring a publisher the size of Activision Blizzard? Do you think it's good for the industry or not? Let me know in the comments below. Now, like I said, we do also have some Xbox Game Pass games to talk about as well, because they revealed 9 more games for the month of January, and actually some really good ones as well. Yeah, it's been a big day for Xbox, but let's just go and check out the games that they revealed here, which includes Danganronpa Anniversary Edition, Death's Door, Hitman Trilogy, Nobody Saves the World, Paparazzi, Rainbow Six Extraction, Windjammers 2, Taiko no Tatsujin the Drum Master, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, and then also Rainbow Six Siege Deluxe Edition for PC. So this is actually a really, really good lineup here, and the first one that I want to point out is Danganronpa Anniversary Edition. This was such a surprise out of nowhere, and I'm just going to go and tell you all, if you like Japanese games, then I truthfully do look at Danganronpa as a must-play game. I played Danganronpa 1, 2, 3, as well as that spin-off on the PlayStation Vita years ago, and these games remain not only some of my favorite games on the PlayStation Vita, but really these are just some of my favorite Japanese games, period. I guess technically these games would be explained as kind of a visual novel, more or less. It's about a murder mystery, but the story itself is just so interesting. I highly, highly recommend checking out Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc Anniversary Edition. It is absolutely amazing. Now, another one here would be Death's Door. This is actually one of the best independent games that released last year in 2021. It's very much an isometric Zelda-like game, and a very good one at that. The gameplay is phenomenal. It's got some interesting puzzles. I like the boss encounters. It has a really cool and mysterious world. I like how the combat is handled. It's a little faster paced than what you would expect in a Zelda style of game, but this one is a great game to pick up if you do like those isometric style of Zelda games. Then, of course, we have talked about Hitman Trilogy already on this channel, as well as Nobody Saves the World and Rainbow Six Extraction, but all 3 of these games are massive. Of course, Hitman is kind of taking over as one of the best stealth-based experiences in the industry, so if you like stealth-based games, you definitely need to be trying out Hitman. Nobody Saves the World, this one is coming from the Guacamelee studio. They make great games, and Nobody Saves the World is a really interesting take on the action RPG genre. You can basically combine all of these different characters to make a completely different class. If you want to be a horse knight, yeah, you can do that. You want to be a rat wizard, okay, well, maybe you can do that as well. Or if you want to be a bodybuilding dragon, you can absolutely do that as well. They allow you to have that creativity, and on top of that, it's also a cooperative style game. So Nobody Saves the World actually looks like a lot of fun, so you might want to check that one out. Then, of course, you do have Rainbow Six Extraction. This is a massive day one release. Rainbow Six is such a big franchise, though with Extraction, this game is a little bit different. Instead of it focusing on competitive multiplayer, Extraction instead focuses on cooperative style of gameplay. So this one will be a little bit different, but I think it's going to be a great fit for Xbox Game Pass. With that cooperative style of gameplay, it'll automatically inject a big user base into Rainbow Six Extraction, and we'll see if this one turns out to be a lot of fun or not, but definitely a big release for Xbox Game Pass. What I will say though is that they're releasing games at rapid fire by this point into Xbox Game Pass, and yeah, those backlogs, yeah, they're not going to get any smaller throughout 2022 especially if you have Xbox Game Pass. Okay, so we do have one more thing to talk about today, and that would be the poll of the day. I do apologize for this episode being a little bit longer. I mean, we did have some massive news to talk about today, but I did ask you all, do you think the rumored PlayStation Game Pass competitor will have day one first-party games when and if it's revealed? And well, it does seem like most of you all are not optimistic about this one at all, as only 18% of you said yes, while 75% of you said no. And I think the reason that a lot of people think that this is not going to happen is because of PlayStation themselves. They've kind of alluded to in the past that they don't necessarily like that idea. Now, maybe they have changed their minds since then. I mean, that is possible. But at the same time, I do kind of agree with you all here. I am leaning in that direction. I'm not overly optimistic that PlayStation will have first-party games enter a subscription service day one, at least not in the year of 2022. Maybe they do it later on, but as of the moment, based off some of the things that they have said in the past, I'm just not sure that's what they're going to do here. Again, based off of what Bloomberg is stating themselves, despite them saying that this is an Xbox Game Pass competitor, everything that they described sounds more like they're just combining PlayStation Now with PlayStation Plus, and maybe have the inclusion of legacy backwards compatible games. But even then, we don't know if that's through streaming or if it's done locally. So I think that there's still a lot of questions remaining with this upcoming service. At the same time, though, I would be glad to be wrong here. I would love if PlayStation did do day one releases. I think that would be phenomenal. But as of this moment, I'm just not convinced that's actually what's happening. Maybe they do something like release their first-party games into a subscription service 6 months after release, or maybe even a year after release. That would still be an enticing service. It might not be as enticing as day one releases, but it would still be pretty good. So maybe they could do something like that. All in all, though, I guess we're just going to have to kind of wait and see until we get the official reveal from PlayStation themselves. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode. But if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.